Hello, I'm Rosher, Miss Britt Charters in Miami, Florida. Today we're going to talk about preparing bonita for strip baits and chunk baits. Bonita is one of the most versatile fish in the ocean, whether you're talking about a little toonie, which this is, or common bonita, as a lot of people call it here, skipjack tunas, even the skin of blackfin tunas can be useful. So all of these tuna species are great bait. So one of the things that I like to do is when I make my initial cut, if you notice this fish has been bled, I actually like to bleed all the tunas and bonitas that I'm going to use for bait, and even the ones I'm going to eat, obviously. So it creates much better meat, red meat. It actually lasts longer. Blood actually turns brown when it decomposes. So we want the blood out of the fish when you catch it. Another thing, if you notice, this is all one color. This fish died in a slush, cold water, cold salt water and ice. And that helps really make the fish super firm. You see how the fish is rock hard. That makes not only the meat last longer and it's better bait, but it also makes it easier to cut because it cuts like wax. So one of the first things we do is outline the slab that we're going to take off the fish. And then instead of cutting the slab off full thickness, I like to shave the slab off so I leave a lot of meat on the fish. So a little bit of a hard plate right here we cut under. Okay, so we make this cut behind this little hard plate. There's a hard plate right here in the back too, so we make this cut a little bit below that hard ridge and take it all the way down. I don't go too far to the tail. And then here I go just, so again, we just outlined the fillet. Then I take my knife, if you notice, I'm cutting kind of parallel to the skin. And what that does is it leaves me with a lot less meat on the skin when I go to make my slab baits. So now I make a little bit more of a horizontal cut, and then I make a little bit of a downward cut. And as a result, now I'm left with a slab that's really nice and thin. Pretty much ready to make my baits for slabs. So if you noticed, I cut the fillet where I left a lot of meat on the fish. Now I'm going to lay my knife flat. You see I have the handle below the table, so I bring it right to the edge. And now I'm going to take this meat, and now that makes it very thin and consistent. Now I'm ready to make my strips. When we make the strips, we're always trying to make them elongated, a little bit wider in the front. So I'll take my first one like this. That's the general shape of the strip, but then I'll fine tune it. It's a little thick here. And you want the back end to be a little thinner than the front end so that it actually swims a little better. So now I have that strip, I don't know if you can see it, nice and thin in the tail, a little bit heavier in the head. Another thing, if you notice, that's pretty sharp edge of meat. So I'll lay it down. And I just made an angled cut there. So now this will troll really nicely. I'll do it to both sides. So now this strip is pretty much ready to go. I'll square off the point just a little bit. Bring it to a little bit more of a point on the front end. Now I have a nice point to pull from and a nice tail that's loose. That's a bonita strip, one of the oldest baits in the charter business, but it has caught a lot of fish. Can catch almost any pelagic fish that swims. So another thing that you have to think about when you're cutting these strips is the angle of the grain of the meat. You can see it really well there. You have to be careful that you don't make this the point of your strip, because as you troll it, these little layers of meat will peel back. So you kind of want to cut the strip in a way that you're shingling or pushing those layers down. So this would be the leading edge of the strip, and that would be the tail. You probably want to be a little thinner than I have it. Very sharp knife obviously is important, but you see as you get thinner, it gets a lot more action. So again, small strips, long strips, it's all about what you're going to use it for and the size of the fish. You know, if you were sword fishing, you might make a strip that's even longer than this. So there's another use for what's left here. The meat that's on the bonita Remember, this is a lateral line, a bloodline. So I cut on each side of these pin bones, or those little vertical bones, and I take these loins out. So these loins are actually very, very valuable to us. We use them for when they're fresh and firm like this. We can cut them into small vermilion snapper baits like this, or dolphin baits. Like the advantage of hooking that on a hook when you're in a school of dolphin, once you have the fish captured near the boat, something like this allows you to throw a nice fresh bloody bait at the fish that they want to eat, and if you miss them or you catch the fish, this goes away. That comes off the hook. You're not left with a big chunk of skin that keeps adding every time you put a new one on. So don't think that this meat isn't valuable. If it's firm, and you see how nice and firm it is, you could hook that on. It's more firm than shrimp, and hook it on your hook for, say, vermilion snappers or dolphin. Very useful bait. Another purpose of this bait is to use for ground food for your bait fish. So when you have bait fish in the pen, these loins of bonita run through a simple little hand grinder or a little tabletop grinder, become some of the richest, most desirable food that you can feed your bait fish. And once they start eating, they actually develop an extra slime coat, and they become actually better baits than you would have had if they were fresh. They actually develop more energy, and the slime coat protection gives them a lot more durability on the water. So very important meat here. So I'm going to cut one more long strip bait out of this bonita. Then I'm going to show you another bait that we use the bonita for. So again, cut these edges at a little bit of an angle. Thin the tail section down. Now you have a beautiful, very, very movable, active bait for a strip. So now, as you can see, we've got 3 sizes of strips. Came out of the same bonita. Okay, so what's left here, we can continue to make strips out of, but if you notice, the back side of these strips are silver. A lot of flash, right? Now what we're left with is more of the dark. Not to say that these dark strips aren't good, but I tend to use these strips for snappers. So when I'm trying to catch, vermilion, yellow eye snappers, we cut triangles, and also we use these for mahi. So you see what I've done is taken this strip that's 2 or 3 inches wide, and I just alternate my little triangles. And what happens, you take this triangle and you hook it on the hook, and guess what it becomes? Is a little mini strip. So we throw these for especially mahi in the summertime. So one bonita can provide belly strips, solid meat chunks, and little triangles that can be used for snappers or mahi. So the bonita are actually, as much as some people believe that they're kind of a worthless fish because they're not edible, they're actually extremely valuable and create a lot of opportunities for other types of fishing. There you go.